Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping straight into the mind of the modern criminal. We aren't looking at ski masks and vault blueprints anymore. Today's bank robberies happen completely silently, literally in milliseconds, across international borders. So we're going to map out the anatomy of a digital heist to truly understand the life cycle of modern payment fraud, and more importantly, how we can actually stop it.
$10 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering amount of money lost globally to various scams in 2023 alone. I mean, this isn't just a bump in sheer volume. This represents a truly terrifying evolution in criminal sophistication. Behind that massive number are real people, ruined businesses, and a highly organized underworld that is constantly upgrading its tactics.
All right, let's get right into Section 1, the exploding fraud threat.
Today's scammers aren't just lone wolves in a basement anymore. They're operating these industrial-scale fraud-as-a-service models. Now, for years, financial institutions built massive, complex technological walls to keep hackers out. But malicious actors realized something absolutely crucial. Why spend months trying to brute force a firewall when you can just trick someone into opening the front door? They are entirely focused on exploiting human vulnerabilities to bypass our best security.
Let's move to Section 2, synthetic identity and app fraud.
Take synthetic identity fraud, for instance. Criminals aren't just stealing whole identities anymore. Instead, they're taking a real, stolen social security number and attaching it to a completely fabricated persona. It's kind of like a Frankenstein identity. And because these profiles contain legitimate data anchors, they sail right past traditional KYC and legacy detection systems. They'll just sit there, cultivating credit for months or even years, before finally busting out and disappearing with the funds.
Then, we've got authorized push payment, or APP fraud. This is where the victim is socially engineered, maybe through romance scams, fake investments, or executive impersonation, into willingly authorizing a transfer. The absolute nightmare for prevention teams here: once that money hits real-time payment rails, there's literally no undo button. The whole thing clears in seconds.
It's a pretty painful paradox, right? We all demand the friction-free convenience of digital wallets and instant checkouts. But that exact same frictionless infrastructure is what scammers weaponize. The incredible speed that lets you instantly split a dinner bill with a friend is the identical speed that's irrevocably moving stolen funds offshore.
Which brings us to Section 3, money mules and the getaway.
So, the crucial question is what actually happens the second after the victim hits send. Well, the money doesn't just sit still. It violently crashes into the world of money laundering, injected rapidly into global cross-border mule networks that actively exploit underregulated jurisdictions to make the trail just completely vanish.
The scam lifecycle moves at blinding speed. Let's break it down. First, authorization happens. Second, the funds land in a mule account. Now, sometimes this is controlled by a complicit actor, but often it's an unwitting victim of a fake job scam. Third is layering. This is rapid-fire bouncing across multiple accounts in really tight time windows to break traceability. And finally, consolidation, where the money moves offshore or gets converted right into crypto.
Now, you might be wondering, why do banks miss this? Well, it's because rule-based legacy systems are fundamentally flawed. They just sit and wait for a single transaction to trip a set dollar limit. But mule networks know your thresholds way better than you do. They intentionally keep transfers just below the radar. So if you're only looking at accounts in isolation, the criminal network remains entirely invisible.
This leads us into Section 4, the fraud AML blind spot.
Here is the fatal flaw in our defense systems. It's the siloed gap between internal teams. You've got fraud teams chasing the originating scam, desperately trying to recover funds. Meanwhile, anti-money laundering teams are monitoring downstream accounts for suspicious activity, but they operate on totally separate platforms. Neither team sees the full chain. It creates this massive blind spot that organized crime just literally walks right through.
And these criminals, they are master manipulators. Take the persistent myth of secret point-of-sale protocols. Scammers will sell merchants the idea that entering special codes into payment terminals will just magically bypass authorization rules for instant cash. It's total fiction. The reality always comes back to exploiting human psychology. They target merchants who are under severe financial pressure, selling them a fake technical solution just to steal their money. It's pure social engineering.
Okay, Section 5, next generation prevention strategies.
So, knowing exactly how this lifecycle operates, how do we actually break the chain? Real-time payments demand real-time AI and machine learning screening before a payment ever even leaves the bank. Institutions need a robust, multi-layered technological arsenal. We're talking API security, advanced encryption, and relentless education, because the human always remains the front line.
The real key here is evolved dynamic risk-based authentication. It adjusts instantly based on real-time risk scoring. Buying a coffee down the street? Completely frictionless. But if your account suddenly attempts to wire $10,000 overseas, the system immediately injects friction, demanding biometric or multi-factor verification.
But honestly, to truly dismantle these mule networks and stop the getaway, institutions have got to tear down their internal data silos. Fraud and AML must share data. Furthermore, we need open data collaboration across the entire industry. Through consortiums like Sonar, if a mule account is flagged at Bank A, Bank B knows about it instantly. Defeating networks absolutely requires network-level intelligence.
To stop modern digital payment fraud, you simply cannot look at a single transaction in a vacuum. It's an interconnected web. So ask yourself, is your institution or the platform you rely on just looking at isolated transactions? Or are they actually seeing the whole network? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay vigilant out there.